when I was playing in that game, I never envisioned I'm going to be back here playing for the Wild someday. I got a drive in my belly. I got a drive from being cut so many times. There's not too many undrafted players anymore.
It's pretty remarkable. I mean, I don't know how much of our audience listens to hockey, but to be undrafted and to end up playing 11 seasons, that's pretty unheard of.
It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen very often. So I knew I needed to differentiate myself. There's a current of this world that is going to
pull you away.
Yeah, that wants you to think about how much money you make, what type of career you're going to have, how beautiful is your girlfriend, what kind of car you're going to drive, what grades do you have. There's a current. What kind of clothes are you wearing? And we're called to swim against that. We're called to not conform to this world.
Welcome to the One Pebble Podcast. It brings myself and my son and co-host Harris great joy. It's a tremendous honor to be with professional former NHL hockey player Nate Prosser today. Nate, welcome. We're so excited. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here with you guys.
Well, we are super excited. We've looked so forward to this. And I have to say, I'm a little bit nervous. It's not every day that you get to sit down with a former NHL professional hockey player. And you know what impresses me so much about you already is you're so humble and you're just have a huge heart. And it means a lot to tap into your life and who you are and learn about you. And we're really excited to spend some time with you today. Before we begin, I just want to say that Nate is married to his beautiful high school sweetheart, Brittany.
Yeah.
And they have 4 darling daughters that they're incredibly proud of. And probably what I'm most excited about is Nate is a Christ follower. And we're going to learn more about that today. Nate, what are you excited about? Before we get into your story, tell us a little bit about what you're excited about these days.
Yeah, no, you hit that nail on the head. I mean, first and foremost, Christ follower. I mean, that's kind of, always been number one on my, pedestal of life. And then, obviously my family and, career and, school and everything came after that. And I grew up in a great household that always made sure faith was number one. So even when I was, going through juniors in college and pro hockey, NHL hockey, where it was hard to be, faith comes number one, but I always had it as number one because that was just our foundation. That's, how my parents raised me. I had an older brother and older sister that, are followers of Christ that, just kind of made it, simple for me to, have this simple faith of, following Christ. And, but what I'm most excited about is, we spend a lot of time at the lake in the summers. So we're, up here almost every weekend. And just a lot of family time. My kids are at such ages that they need dad around. So I got a 13-year-old, an 11-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 6-year-old. And, they all got louder and louder. So I got a lot of voices and almost feels like I have 5 wives sometimes. When I'm driving a car and, I go a different direction to the hockey rink, they're all freaking out. Where am I parking? They're telling me where to park. So, I mean, just it's a constant, buzzing, in my house, in my car. And, they're great. There's nothing better than having daughters. And, I had 4 thinking eventually I'll have a boy, but, God had other plans. So, yeah.
You're an all-in dad. I just know it. And those girls bring you and Brittany tremendous joy. And I bet you're so busy with all of their activities. And I'm sure they all have different personalities. And as much as you and Brittany sharpen them, I'm sure they sharpen you as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. As the head of the household, I know that, it's my job to, lead them, to fan their flames for Jesus, all their lives, make them leaders, make them, leaders in their locker rooms and their schools and their classrooms amongst their peers in the neighborhood. So that's what me and my wife constantly talk about is how do we, bring out the joy and the love and the peace and the kindness that, comes from Jesus out of them each and every day. And, so that's what we're striving for. And, it's hard these days, there's there's a lot of, stuff that gets thrown at us as far as, sports and activities and, busyness. And, we try to slow down life as much as possible and, be a family and, make sure we're, praying together and, listening to some worship music and doing devotionals and, making it to church. Even that's, harder and harder these days, but, we make sure we enforce it.
You didn't ask me what I'm excited about, but I'm excited to be wearing my sweater in August. I mean, not very often do you get to throw it on in August. It's usually a winter thing, and it's a little humid today. But we're just super excited to have a former NHL player on the podcast. But let's kind of just start at the beginning. You're a hometown Minnesota guy, just like me. Tell us about your childhood and growing up in Elk River.
Yeah. I love the jerseys. They're great. It makes me miss playing. When we go down to the Wild or the XL Energy, or it's not the XL Energy Center anymore. It's the Grand Casino Arena now. Did you guys know that?
Yeah,
kind of weird. Like it's always been the
weird.
X, and so I'll probably always call it the X. But whenever I go down, it's like, oh man, I miss it. I was fortunate and to play for 35 years of my life. But back to my upbringing. I grew up in Elk River, Minnesota. It was a blue collar city that every kid played hockey. On my street, it was like street hockey in the summers. We were building Stanley Cups out of tinfoil, and in the winter, everyone was a rink rat. We were on the outdoor rinks. Our parents would drop us off out there, and they wouldn't come pick us back up until the sun was going down. It was dinner time. So it was like I was almost like forced into playing hockey. My dad played hockey. My older brother is 3 years older than me. He played hockey. So obviously I'm going to follow in their footsteps. But then, Elk River, where it's like, we had a lot of good high school hockey teams that went to state tournaments and a lot of good players before me that I was able to like kind of just look up and admire and guys like Dan Heinold, old Avalanche, St. Louis Blue player, Paul Martin, some couple NHLers before me. I mean, these guys were like the most humble guys ever. Like, they were taking their shirts off their back for you. And they would like kind of almost take me under their wings. Like when I was in high school, Dan Heinold would come home in the summers and he'd get a key to the rink and he would have me come with him, with his like professional college buddies and just kind of, he didn't have to do that. Like, why was he doing that? But just, the heart that, it almost like the city was like a very humble, kind, blue collar, bring your lunch pail to work type of city that, really was centered around hockey. So it was, my goal growing up was just to play for the high school team because I wanted to go play at the XL Energy Center in the state tournament someday. And I never really thought like, man, my aspirations are to play for, the Colorado Avalanche someday. It was just like, man, I like being around my neighborhood friends. Man, we're going to all these high school hockey games. They're really good. I just want to play for my high school someday. And, just kind of one step at a time. But yeah, it was a great city to grow up in. I grew up in a Christian household. Again, that, enforced, church on Sundays, church on Wednesday nights. And, it didn't matter if we had other stuff going on, like we were there. And, that had a huge impact on, my personal faith with Jesus. I needed those Wednesday night services, going to youth group. We would drive down to, Emmanuel Christian Center. It was like in Blaine or Anoka, and like it'd be Elk River High School, Anoka High School, Coon Rapids High School, Blaine High School, just everyone just that kind of worshiping together. And it, I just thought it was like the coolest thing ever. So that's kind of where I started my personal faith was Wednesday night youth services. So, I love that my parents were, had the right, pecking order for everything in our lives.
So exciting. And so when you grew up, Nate, you weren't even thinking NHL.
Not really. I mean, like I would tell my teachers, they would always ask you, what do you want to be when you're older? Yeah, I want to be a pro hockey player, okay. Like something like, like that. But, I was always like the little guy. I was a late bloomer. I was late onto this scene. I didn't grow until I was like 17 years old. I was, just kind of pushed to the side almost, all my upbringing. So my vision never was like, okay, I'm going to be in the NHL someday. That's my goal, and that's what I'm going to do. It was just kind of step-by-step process where like, okay, I want to play for my high school team my sophomore year. Okay, I did that. I finally grew a foot. I went from 5'2" to 6'2" in 1 year. And then kind of just everything changed. So from like 17 to 24, that's when just everything kind of clicked. I started shaving my face, all that type of stuff, hit my stride, got some speed, got some strength, kind of became a man. So, those were the big years for me. And then all of a sudden, stuff started coming into my sight that maybe it's a possibility. But, even my biggest fan all my life was my dad. I mean, if you ask him, even when I was probably 23 years old, he'd probably be like, make sure you're getting your academics right and not thinking, you're going to be in the NHL because it's still a long shot. Right. So it was a complete, looking back on it now, like it's amazing to see how God had his hand in, opening doors and closing doors and, just kind of out in front of me. And I just kind of walked in his path that he had for me. And, that's why I always knew, whatever locker room I was going to be in, I was just, trying to be a light for him.
Amazing. When you were in high school, I think of Minnesota State, high school hockey tournaments, and it is such a big deal. And I love that about Minnesota.
Yeah.
Did you feel, at probably 17 years old or 16 years old in the state tournament, I'm sure that was nerve-wracking. And when you compare that to being in an NHL game, what's the comparison like? So you're in high school and you're looking at, probably 20,000 people or however many go. That's such a big deal in Minnesota. Yeah. And then, you're at the NHL level. I bet when you were 16 or 17, that probably felt as big of a deal, if not more.
It probably was. Yeah. And I was probably more nervous when I played the high school hockey tournament, just, immaturity and all that. But, that was always my dream, is to play down at the XL. And then we got an opportunity. We had a good team my sophomore year. And I was, we played there, the semifinal or the quarterfinal game, we lost. So we ended up going over to the Mariucci after that. But that first night, I just remember, the nerves. I remember almost like it was yesterday, how excited we all were to, take the bus down there the night before, get in a hotel, and just the vibe around the arena, during the state tournament is at like an all-time high. And, this state really embraces it. It's like really unlike anything else. It's, Minnesota hockey is probably comparable to like Texas football type of situation. So, like just the whole area around the X during that time, the hotels, the restaurants, everyone wearing jerseys, there's a buzz, the bands are playing.
Were you rocking the flow too?
I was. Yeah. I've lost it since, but each daughter keeps going back. But I had some good flow going at the time.
You would have made the all hockey hair team.
Yeah, I think we all bleached it or something. So we all went blonde. But yeah, I had hair like down to my shoulders and winged out and all that. But nothing like a mullet or something. Yeah. Some of those are crazy, or the perm or the afro. But I wasn't like super crazy. But
you had some salad.
I miss my salad. Yeah. I do. I really do. Yeah, I do. But yeah, then when I was playing in that game, I never envisioned I'm going to be back here playing for the Wild someday. Like that. Just I don't know. I not to say I wasn't nervous for that game, but probably more nervous for that state tournament hockey game.
So you talked about God opening and closing doors. You actually went to Colorado for college. Yeah. And I know Colorado College is a very good hockey school, but is there something that brought you there other than hockey that God kind of opened that door?
I didn't have many options. So once I made my high school team, it wasn't like, I just want to play through my senior year. No, eventually I hit my growth spurt. I, started becoming a man. I got a drive in my belly. I got a drive from being cut so many times. So like, what's crazy is like, people view making a B team or getting cut from a select team or not making this team or that team as a really negative thing. Well, I almost took it as like, not to say I wasn't sad about it, but I took it. I got cut from a select 15, 16, and a 17 team up in St. Cloud. And I remember going out to my car crying. My dad was there and he's like, you can take this two ways. You can go back to Elk River and play till you're 18, be done playing hockey. I'm super proud of you. Great. You had a good run, or you can let this light a fire under your butt and, try to, who knows where God can take this. And, that's what I did. I went back home and, everything that people would knock on me was like, not fast enough, not a good enough shot, not strong enough, not quick enough. Well, all of a sudden I went home and I'm like, I'm going to outwork those 6 defensemen every day of the week. If they're shooting this many pucks, I'm going to shoot double. So there was something in me that was just like, I wasn't going to be stopped. Like I'm going to shoot hundreds of pucks a day. I was out on the track by myself in Elk River doing ladder work and sprints and plyometrics by myself. I was doing all the work. I was in the weight room after every school day. My mom had a big inspiration on me for that. She was just kind of a workoutaholic and would give me my programs and made sure to just that drive just came from within. And all of a sudden, like I said, from 17 to 24, my game just took off. So guys that are recruited to the Gophers in North Dakota and Wisconsin, Michigan, these big schools, they're
early bloomers.
They're early.
Yeah.
They're the kids that
they're getting signed at 16,
yeah,
15.
They're really good peewees. They're really good Bantams. They're really good, 9th, 10th graders. Well, man, I wasn't that good yet. Like I was a little punk still, and chasing my brother around and bugging the crap out of him. So like I needed like to grow. I needed to, get bigger, stronger, faster. So, I went to Elk River High School. I ended up leaving halfway through my senior year, going to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And, everyone in the USHL has the vision of playing Division I hockey. Well, growing up in Minnesota, the WCHA was kind of the best. So like always watch the Gophers and North Dakota and St. Cloud and Mankato and Denver and CC. So like all of a sudden my goal is like, all right, it'd be awesome to take the burden of college off my parents. I'd love to play Division I in the WCHA someday. So I took a visit to DU and CC. It's kind of the only 2 teams that said, hey, come for a visit. So I had two visits. That's it. So I was kind of just like, whoever comes first, I'm kind of going to run with. And CC came after my first full year down in Sioux Falls, and got a scholarship down there. And so it was, went there as a 20-year-old. So went a little late, but I needed every year to get there.
That's really remarkable. I've heard so many stories recently about people who've just been extremely successful in their careers or whatever that like started with a no, or like started with a setback or adversity or something like, I mean, you think of like, everyone's heard it, like Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team and now he's like, he's the GOAT. Yeah. Obviously. I think everyone knows that. Yeah. But like, that's just super cool to see like how you respond to things. Yeah. And maybe you can like talk more on that. Like your response to like that situation is really like what defined the outcome, not the situation itself.
Spot on. Your response is everything. Yeah. I mean, I could have took it as like, woe is me, go home and pouty and, shrug my shoulders and, hopefully I make the, varsity team next year. And then, some people go that route. Well, there's a different route. I wanted to be like, okay, there's a different route here. And I'm going to, how you respond to it is everything. Just like you said, I mean, and I think there's so many people in youth sports need to hear that now, because they get upset, like, I didn't make the Blades, or I didn't make this A team, or I didn't, make this select team. And, I always just say there's so much value in that. Like learn from that. Well, why were you? Like let that be something that just like boils up inside of you, and like use it as momentum to, get better, work harder.
Drives you.
Yeah. So just because you make a B team as a squirt or a peewee doesn't mean you're going to be a B player the rest of your life. Go write down the kids that made it over you and be like, okay, I'm coming back next year.
Yeah. Who's going to work harder?
Yeah, I'm coming. I'm coming. And, and as believers, I feel like Christ wants that. And like Jesus gave you your abilities and talents to use to their fullest. Well, I'm not going to shrug my shoulders and be like, oh, dang it. Like, this stinks, I got screwed or something like that. No. He put the abilities and my drive in me. Okay. I'm going with it. Like I'm going to use them. I'm going to use them to the fullest. And wherever that, maybe it ends at juniors, maybe it ends at college. Thanks, Lord. Thanks for, giving me those years of, the successes that I did have. But he just, year in, year out, I kept getting better and better and, just strived.
We're going to talk more about those skills and abilities, but like stepping into the next, like continuing the same conversation we were just having, you went to the NHL next and you kind of followed that same trajectory. From my understanding, you were undrafted.
Yeah.
What was that like? Was that?
I mean, you go down to the Excel or the Grand Casino. I'll always call it the X. We might get this confusing, but go down to the X and look at get the rosters of both teams. There's not too many undrafted players anymore.
Well, it's pretty remarkable. I mean, I don't know how much of our audience listens to hockey, but to be undrafted and to end up playing 11 seasons, that's pretty unheard of.
It doesn't happen.
Yeah,
it doesn't happen very often. So like, I knew I needed to like differentiate myself. So yeah, we could go on a long time.
Was that hurtful though? Like, were you expecting to be drafted or?
No, because I was late on the scene.
Okay.
I was like, I wasn't my best Bantam in Elk River. Like there was a ton of guys that were better than me in Elk River in the conference and everything else. Like, so I knew to get drafted, you have to be like
the top of the top.
I was going against like Jack Hillen and Blake Wheeler and, guys that my age were those guys. They skated, really nicely. They had really good shots. They were smooth. They were skilled. That wasn't me. Like I just wasn't there yet. And so it just took me a little longer. And so like I never like looked at not getting drafted as a setback. I just
you use it as drive.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. But again, like I didn't even know, like I just wanted a college scholarship.
Yeah.
Okay, then that happened. Okay, now I go to CC and now I'm like, okay, I had a good, decent freshman year, really good sophomore year. And I got invited to some development camp for St. Louis. And I went there and all I wanted to do is like kind of see where I matched up. Okay, like, is this just like a token invite for, a dumb college kid to come, be a part of this? I don't know. But I went there thinking, okay, where do I match up against this Red Deer, Alberta kid? Where do I match up against this Toronto, Ontario kid? So like I got to see, okay, crap, I'm not far off. Like I felt like that was huge for me to go there and just open my eyes to like, geez, if I keep striving and getting better, a little bit better each and every year, I'm going to be here, So like that vision and got in my mind at, 21, which is a little later. There's guys getting into the NHL at 19 and 20, 18. Yeah. Well, I was 21 when I finally started thinking, maybe, okay, like let's just take this year by year. I love playing. I got so much good advice along the way, but one of my assistant coaches when I was younger would tell me like the moment you stop loving hockey is the moment you should be done. Well, I always loved it. I loved being at the rink. I loved being with the guys. I loved, working hard in practice and getting after my buddies and game nights obviously were the best, some music bumping and, Red Bulls cracking. Like, I mean, that's like the best thing ever. Like, that's what I miss the most. And, so yeah, I can't remember how the question started, but, just, it was a great run and I miss it so much. Yeah.
Wow.
That's what I was going to ask you is when it was a maybe the NHL. Yeah. You're in college, and what was going through your mind, and what were your parents telling you? What were your coaches telling you?
Yeah. Well, honestly, my coach at CC kind of pulled me aside after I went to that camp and, kind of told me I'd never make it to the NHL. So I'm like,
he said that to you?
Yeah. Yeah.
He said that to you.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just.
How do you respond to that?
I mean, I was pretty mentally tough like all my life. So that kind of like just bounced off me pretty easily. Mm-hmm. But I remember like leaving and, feeling a little dejected by it, maybe thinking, okay, now I'm back to the way everyone talked to me all my life, is just like, let's just enjoy my college years and playing hockey at CC and playing in the WCHA. And, like, again, even my dad and my mom and my brother, and my wife, my biggest fans were probably still like, let's strive at CC. Let's make sure we're getting good grades and we're ready to get into the business world when it's done. And, so that was kind of what was on my mind. But each practice and each year, I just kept getting better, kept getting stronger, kept getting a better shot, kept getting a little faster. And so, went back my junior year, had another good year, went back my senior year, had another good year. And by then I was 24 years old, 24 playing in college, you're playing it's 18, 19-year-olds. So like, I look,
you are bigger.
Yeah, I am bigger. I am more mature. And I started to play like that. And I knew like in those sophomore, junior, senior year, if I just played the same way as the kids that are drafted, they're, scouts are going to come watch, GMs are going to come watch. Well, I got almost a tidbit again when I was growing up, is like, you got to be able to differentiate yourself. Like, well, how am I going to do that? Well, I played a little nasty. Like my dad always told me, you got to be able to flip a switch. Like when you are off the ice, you flip the switch off and you be the nice brother, the nice son, nice hug your grandma, get your homework done on time, get good grades, love Jesus. When that puck drops, when you get back on the ice, you flip the switch and you turn into a mean SOB, is what you tell me. Over those, years of college and a little bit in juniors, that's what I did. Like I loved like playing a little nasty, playing hard, making sure that my opponents like didn't want to be on the ice and go in my corner because like, man, he plays too dirty or too mean, or, he's yapping in my ear and it's really ticking me off. Well, like I like getting guys off their games, and okay, when the final buzzer blows, flip the switch back off and go hug the guy after and say, dude, I didn't mean anything by it. Like I was, playing the game hard and, game's over, love you and move on, type of thing. But, so I was able to, kind of find a role and a niche, through those years to, have some, recognition from NHL teams. Well, when you're undrafted and you get done with your senior year, you might have some opportunities with teams. And I had, kind of 5 or 6 teams that were interested, and Minnesota just happened to be one of them.
Wow. So I've read many articles that have kind of like described you as the ultimate underdog. And I think you've described that a little bit with, you weren't maybe as skilled or as fast but you've said so many times that you've played in your role. Yeah. And like you found your little, what am I going to do? How does that like translate from like figuring out your purpose on the ice, like figuring, okay, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to be the mean guy because that's my purpose, to like your purpose in the kingdom or your purpose of like serving God? Yeah. Like how does that correlate maybe?
Really good question. I mean, I think it's just like when I flipped it back off and I get in the locker room, man, again, it's all about being a light. Okay. Like did Jesus want me to be soft and timid and not protect my teammates on the ice? No, he wants me to. So if I have to fight for a teammate, it might look weird as a Christian, but I'll drop my gloves and you hit my teammate the wrong way. Okay. When that fight's over in the penalty box, I'll say, good fight, good job. Let's go, have a Coke after the game, whatever. That's cool. But again, like I just wanted to be the best team guy I could be because I knew that was going to be my role.
Yeah. Well, it seems like you knew exactly like who you needed to be out there, and you were so successful with that.
Well, I was always signed as the number 7 defenseman. So like, in the NHL, you play in hockey, you play 6 defensemen. I was always signed as the 7th. So I was always signed as like the depth insurance guy. Well, how for one, depth insurance guys don't last, very long, but I knew like, again, in order for me to make this as long as I could, I needed to be like a glue guy, team guy that, okay, if I'm in the press box or I'm watching and cheering on my teammates, I'll have my pom-poms on and cheer on Jared Spurgeon and Ryan Suter. And that's cool by me. I'm living out my dream. I'm in the NHL. And then once my number's called, man, it's go time. Like when 39's called, like I want the great grandma in the upper deck to be like, oh man, look how hard that guy works. There's 10 guys on the ice and he's the hardest working guy on the ice every shift. That's what I wanted. So like that, I knew like that was going to, keep me around and keep me around for as long as I did. And then, back to some advice, like I got some good advice like all my life. And one of them was early. I signed out after CC, I played 3 games with the Wild. That next season, training camp, I got sent down. So that next season, I was in Houston, almost for the full season. And Mike Yeo is the head coach down there. And he pulled me aside like early on in that year and said, Pras, like, you came from CC where you played half the game. You're in the starting lineup. You're on the power play. You're on the penalty kill. You were counted on in some big minutes. In order for you to make it in pro hockey, that's not going to be you anymore. You're going to be a third set defenseman. You're going to block shots. You're going to be a pain to play against. You're going to be a prick to play against. You're going to, play 12 minutes a night. And for a lot of kids, that's a culture shock. That's like, crap. What do you mean? I was on the half wall on the power play and I was a goal scorer and I was on the first line. That's not my role. Well, I took it as like, he's giving me some advice, some valuable advice. I'm going to run with it. Like I'm going to do exactly what he said. So if I'm going to be that third set defenseman or a 7th defenseman, I'm going to be the best 7th defenseman in the NHL. So that was, again, my mindset was just like, it kind of flipped into like, okay, I'm here. How do I make it last as long as I can? Well, Mike Yeo, he's going to be around. He's going to get jobs. And he told us, like, even in the locker room in Houston, is like, he respected our team. We had a really good team down there. We went to the finals. He went up and he said, when I go up, I'm taking you guys with me. So like, he all of a sudden brought us all up with them. Well, that advice he gave me, he wanted to see that out of me. And once I started doing that, it's like, I have your back. So like my 11 years, I followed him everywhere.
Yeah.
Like he went to St. Louis, I went to St. Louis. He went to Philadelphia, I went to Philadelphia.
Wow.
Like he's almost like my angel in hockey.
Yeah.
Mike Yeo and Chuck Fletcher, like the GM and the head coach just knew I wasn't going to be a guy that's like knocking on their door being like, why am I not playing? Why,
you were playing in your purpose.
Yeah. Like, I should be getting more ice. Why am I not on the penalty kill? They don't want to hear that. Do you think Mike Yeo wants the 7th defenseman to knock on his door being like pouty and negative and, or does Jared Spurgeon and Ryan Suter want to see their 7th defenseman come in and be like, oh, look at Pras is pouty and negative. No, they want to like 7th defenseman, you got to be like upbeat and building people up and putting your arm around them and, giving nicknames to guys and, putting the locker room together. And that's what I like took pride in. I took pride in being the glue guy. Like I've been called that so much that it's, whatever, like, but like I took pride in that. Like as a Christian, I wanted to build up kids that I saw might be down, And I even did that in high school when I saw a kid that was getting picked on or someone sitting alone at lunch. Like there's something in my heart that just like kind of got ripped out that I'm like, I'm going to sit by him. Like I might get made fun of for it, but I don't care, and almost kind of like translated as I kept getting older and older. Well, I see a kid that's not getting along with the team, doesn't go to dinner with anybody. Well, I'm going to dinner with you. Let's go, type of stuff. And yeah.
Wow. One thing that like really strikes me about that story is like the humility of yourself to not want to be like the hero of the team or the hero of your story, or like, you know, I've made it to the league. Now I'm going to play in my purpose. I'm not going to try and go out there and be Ovechkin or something like that. You know,
I knew I couldn't be.
I don't know. I think you scored what, like 11 goals in 11 years. And you were able to like go that whole time. And one thing that we've talked about for many weeks now, and going all the way back to Scott's podcast like a month ago, is he was saying that like he was the king of his life for a long time.
Yeah.
And until he like stepped aside and put God as the king and knew that he's here for God's purpose to support other people. It's like, that is just so parallel in your story too, that your ultimate success of playing in the league for 11 years didn't come through worshiping yourself, performance. It came through, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be the glue guy. I'm going to build up the team, and I'm going to be here working in my purpose, working with my skills on the ice. But that's just amazing.
Well, and I think versus flashy, I'd much rather have the guy that's humble, hardworking, resilient.
Yeah.
That I forget flashy. If I'm the coach, I'm taking Nate Prosser all day long.
Yeah. Thanks. I mean, that honestly spot on. I mean, there was times where I'm lining up for a face-off against, you know, Patrick Kane or Jonathan Toews. I'm like, well, like I don't belong on this ice with these guys. But like, I knew, like, you know, my prayer before every game is, you know, Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And it's like that was like almost ranked through my head each and every game, because during the national anthem, that's my prayer, and, you know, guide me and protect me, and, you know, have your angels watching over me, and you know, Philippians 4:13. And so like he gave me, you know, my abilities, my talents to be out there, that I can rest assured in that, like he's already on the other side. He knows how long I'm going to play. He knows, you know, what locker rooms I'm going to be in. He knows what guys I'm going to interact with. He knows, you know, I just kind of almost let him lead the way. And, you know, I just kind of wanted to follow on his path, like I said.
Wow.
Nate, I have to ask you, and I got to put my mom hat on as a parent, and I almost feel a little bit emotional about this, thinking of your parents. I don't know your parents, but I can just tell already you came from awesome stock. They had the right recipe of pushing you to be the absolute best that God made you to be, and stepping into the possibilities of who you were, but also loving you super well along the journey.
Yeah.
And no matter what happened, NHL or not, your parents were going to love you just the same.
100%.
But I have to ask you, the moment you found out, I have made it to the NHL, what did that feel like?
Oh man. I remember signing with the Wild. I was in my parents' driveway. It was my mom and my brother. I don't know where my dad was. Maybe he was on a work trip or something. My wife wasn't there, or my fiance, my wife at the time, or my wife now. I remember like we were crying in each other's arms. I mean, like none of us thought it was going to happen. None of us. So even when it happened, we're all like, no way. I'm hopping on a private jet tomorrow to go meet the team in Columbus. I'm going to play for the Minnesota Wild, you know, like no way. Like you know, there's definitely like, there's moments through my entire 11 years, like where I was like, I can't believe I'm doing it. Like my wife was, you know, equally yoked, you know, believer. So like times where she needed to pull me back and just say, Nate, pinch yourself. Like you're living out your dream. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I am, you know? So like, there wasn't like my first game to my last game moment where I was like, it was the whole way. I'm like, it almost felt like every day was a tryout for me, because like I was always on a 1-year league minimum deal. Every day I was getting evaluated. So like on top of like this whole journey, like I was walking on eggshells every day. I was hiding from the GM in my locker room. You know, like I knew when my numbers called and I maybe had a couple bad games, it's easy to put me down in the minor league. I'm undrafted. He's league minimum. Let's call up that second rounder down in the minors.
There's young guys that are
ready to take it. Well, again, my mindset was like, you guys aren't coming over the top of me. I'm pushing you guys down. You're going to stay down. Like I'm here to stay, and I'm going to ride this out. Like, so when my numbers called, I'm going to play my A game. I'm going to play stinking hard. And I want everyone in the building to be like, he's the hometown kid that, is like the glue guy that's, helps us have success on the ice. When he goes in the lineup, we win hockey games. Like, that's what I wanted. So like to say there's like one moment, like I remember, that moment of signing. Then I remember like putting on the jersey the first time I was in Edmonton, my first game. They said, okay, you're going to sign. We'll keep you up with the Minnesota Wild, but we're not going to guarantee any games. You just get a feel, pro hockey, get to know some people, get to know the, process, practices. And well, God thing, he opened a door, a few guys, I think, we're out of the playoffs and 3 defensemen got hurt or something like that. And Todd Richards skating around at morning skate in Edmonton says, Pross, you ready to go? I'm like, yeah, I'm ready for morning skate. He's like, no, you're in tonight. I'm like, oh my goodness. I didn't, usually go back, have a meal, pregame nap. There was no napping. I was buzzing around my hotel room doing like lunges ready to go, like making every call, texting everybody saying Fox Sports North tonight, get it on, I'm in. So I just remember throwing that jersey in Edmonton and, just almost just saying, thank you, Lord, thank you, like sitting across from Mikko Koivu and Andrew Burnett and guys that kind of grew up watching too, Pierre-Marc Bouchard, Boogie was still on the team and, Brent Burns and Greg Zanin and, just Marek Zidlicki, Nick Schultz. Just a lot of guys that, when I was in high school, my dad would take me down to the X. We'd watch all these guys. And I never thought, he would ask me, do you think you ever have a chance to get in here? And I'm like, yeah. But never really knowing. But yeah, that was, some special moments along the way. And,
do you know what I love about your spirit is you never felt entitled and you never took it for granted. Looking back, how did you deal with the pressure?
It was hard. There's, especially on my wife, like there's a lot of days where I would go home and there's angers and frustrations and stresses along the way. Like I said, I think out of my 11 years, I signed 2 2-year deals. So 4 of my years were, a multi-year type of deal. So the other 7 were 1-year deals. So it felt like every season I'm like thinking somewhere in my mind is like, is this it? It's a good run. I made the NHL, but like, I wanted this to last. I want it to keep going. Like, so like there was times where I'd sit out for 3-4 weeks at a time. I never started the season in the lineup. They had their 6, it's contract league, they're not going to they're not going to sit a $3 million guy over a league minimum guy. The 6 defensemen that are, under the contracts are playing. Well, I had to wait my turn and, wait for, bad performance or a lot of losses in a row or an injury. So there was weeks on end where I would sit and watch. I renamed the press box the Pross box. As many,
but you still got to be ready to go when your name's called.
Yeah. Oh yeah. As many games I played, what did I play? 360. I bet I spent 360 in the press box. So it was like my second home. I knew when the good pretzel and cheese was going to be up there, where the root beer was going to be. Like it was like my second home up there. I got comfortable and, I knew, where I sat every game. And, but again, like, okay, how do I be the best 7th defenseman? This is where I'm at. This is my role and my niche. Okay. Eventually my number will get called. Okay. When it is, I gotta be ready. So like when I'm up and watching press box and, doing the mental reps and then, doing a workout, like I always stayed ready. That's the accountability you learn at a young age and being a part of a team sport is that you're counted on to perform. Well, like even as a squirt, you have a job on that team just the way I have a job on the Wild. Okay, well, it's not like I could skip a beat. Zach Parese's counting on me to, get him the puck tape to tape on breakouts. Okay. I gotta be ready for that when my number is called. So, again, like kind of a God thing. Like I always felt great when I went back in the lineup. It wasn't like I was like, oh, like I hope I'm ready, or, I've been sitting out too long. Like, no, like there's like a power of the mind that's just like, was like, my number's called, like my shoulder blades are back, coming in the locker room. It's go time. Like, I'm excited for this. Like, I'm going to play the best of my talents and abilities tonight. And, but I can't remember how the question started. Sorry.
It was just about pressure.
Oh yeah. Pressure. Yeah. So, I mean, I always had a newborn, in all my years of pro hockey, like so a lot fell on my wife, to perform at a high level and play, years of NHL hockey. You got to sleep right, you got to eat right, you got to train right, all that stuff. Well, we're having newborn. The newborn's up at 2 a.m., 5 a.m., and then 7 a.m. for the day. And then we have a 4-year-old. All of a sudden, we're having brats and mac and cheese. There was like almost like an understanding in our house, like, okay, I need to eat right. So like, instead of having a brat and mac and cheese, I need a steak and some salad before a game. We got the Blackhawks tomorrow. I can't, come in and, think I'm going to perform against, Patrick Sharp and Ryan, Duncan Keith and, Jonathan Taves on some mac and cheese and hot dogs or something. I got to eat right. And then, there's, my wife understood, like, okay, so like, she's a rock star behind the scene, behind every professional athlete that has, wife and kids. Like, there's almost like an understanding, like, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard through these years. Kind of almost a part-time parent. And I don't like saying that. Like, it stunk being that. Like, but on the road for 8 days, at home for 5, back on the road for 6, home for 3, back on the road for 7, like, that was just kind of the nature of it. And, I think she was so good at just, always, keeping faith, number one, and keep me grounded, and, keeping me, like I said earlier, it's just like pinching me, like saying, Nate, look where we're at, like, life is good. We got healthy kids. We know where our eternity stands, and, that's what really matters. And, like, let's just try doing this the best we can.
One of the top moments that you probably had in your career, what came on Hockey Day, Minnesota. Yeah. I don't remember the year exactly.
2014.
Mm. It was being held in Elk River. Tell the listeners about what happened at the X that night.
Yeah, I mean, Hockey Day in Minnesota is every year, and it's it's a big day. I mean, again, it's kind of like a holiday in the state. It's almost like you should get work off on that day. Like you wake up in the morning and there's already high school hockey games being played wherever that location is, and it's always in a cool spot. So it's always like out on a lake in Grand Rapids, or out on a football field in, Moorhead, or, something where it's really cool, unique setting. Well, in this 2014 setting, was in, it's called the Hanky Pit. It's kind of down in a bowl. And I remember, that's where I grew up, going to outdoor rinks, and so it was so cool, like, wake up that day, turn it on, and see like the buzz around Elk River, and a bunch of people already out there, fire pits around, and, the city was buzzing, and, the state buzzes for, that day. And, so I just remember getting to the rink that night, and, preparing the same way. And, but there's always a little bit more excitement in me in that day. So like, I don't know.
And to be in your hometown.
You're
celebrating your sport.
Yeah. So it's almost like,
were you nervous?
Yeah. I mean, usually I needed a Red Bull before a game. I don't think I did that night. The energy was already just, buzzing pretty good. But yeah, we ended up, tie game after regulation, against Dallas Stars. And, usually when regulation ends, my night's over. I could probably start, undoing my elbow pads, untie my skates. And, I usually don't get a shift in overtime. Usually it's, Suter, Spurgeon, Brodeen, Dumba, and then back to the top, type of thing. Well, third shift in, my D coach, Rick Wilson, taps me and says, "Pross, you're up." I'm like, almost like looking to see if he's like, kind of screwed up or something, like, okay, all right, like, I'm ready. Okay, hopped over the boards, Coyle passed it out to Niederreiter. Niederreiter shot it, and after the fact, like, over the last few years that, I've had, buddies in the locker room tell me like how like everyone was yelling, like for me to not like dive in, because my D coaches, they knew like I wasn't like super offensively gifted. So like they always said I have like a leash on me whenever I got too low in the offensive zone, like the D coaches were like pulling me back. And they're like doing that at that time. But for some reason I, stepped in there, rebound comes out to me and I, tapped it back in. And so I'm, kind of my claim to fame is I'm 1 for 1 in overtime shifts. So maybe should have played me a little bit more in overtime. I guess. No.
One of your 11 goals came on Hockey Day, Minnesota at home. Yeah. In your hometown, Hockey Day. And
then next year it was Hockey Day, Minnesota. I got the game winner again. So like,
really?
Yeah, we played in Tampa and beat Vasilevsky over his glove and ended up being the game winner. I think we won 3-2 or something. And like all of a sudden I get back in the locker room and guys are like, dude, why don't you act like every game's Hockey Day in Minnesota? You'd be making $5 million a year. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I had some successes on Hockey Day in Minnesota, and I don't know. I just something that just was built up, and I just maybe on my toes a little bit more on that day, and
Wow, that's an amazing story.
I have to say too that being in the NHL for 11 years. I can't even imagine. Like, it's profound, it's rare, it's special. Like the minute amount of people that happens to, like Nate, pinch yourself for the rest of your life. Pinch yourself for the rest of your life.
I know.
But although I barely know you, here's what I know about you already. Far greater than the profound 11 years. And you should be so proud of that. The man of character that you are, the Christ follower you are, just you shining the light on Brittany and honoring her and just saying, iron sharpens iron. We're a rock together and she's a rock star. Like when I think of all the teams that you played of and your team at home with your wife and 4 girls, and by the way, you've given me goosebumps like 6 times today. Your most magical role in life isn't those profound 11 years. Yeah. It is, I think of the role you were on all of those teams in the locker room, the man of character you are, the Christ follower, how you rubbed off on all of those men, those coaches. Nate, you didn't even know it. Yeah. To this day, you rubbed off on them.
Yeah. Ripple
and
effects.
Now how you're rubbing off on those 4 girls and that beautiful wife. And so just don't be humble. Like speak to the 11 years is amazing. But what's even more amazing is the impact you've had on people.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, there's so many good stories about, my faith throughout the years too, is like, because I was able to gain so much respect with so many players with the way I treated people. I loved everybody. Like I had a time of day for the Zamboni driver, to the trainers, to the massage guy, to our, coaches. I didn't look at them as like, I can't talk to you. You're my coach. I just looked at them like they're a man-to-man conversation, and so they respected me more for it. And then all my teammates, like there was situations that I had Danny Heatley not saying the Lord's name in vain around me, or he would like stop himself because eventually they all knew I was a Christian, and they were like, man, that's cool. Like let me hear more about it. Or we'd run chapels, and I would come out and Chris Stewart would say, spit some knowledge at me. Let me know what you learned in your chapel today. And I'll be like, okay, Lord's tapped me on my shoulder. Now it's time to, speak about my faith. So there's this many moments, in the sauna after a game, just small talking with guys. And, like there's so many like light bulb moments that, again, like Jesus, like kind of tapped on my shoulder and, now's your time to, glorify me and tell them about me. And, and there's a lot of cool moments that, just again, try to just planting seeds. And, I don't know if it's going to be years down the road where, maybe there'll be some calls or texts or meet up with guys that, want to know more, or, there's already been some of those, an old buddy in high school reached back out to me and, he always wanted to know what was different about me. Well, I told him why, and it's, my faith in Jesus is kind of who I am. It's, you think like my personality and positivity just kind of comes naturally. No, like there's someone in me that's, kind of letting it beam and, led him to Christ over the phone. So just a lot of, moments throughout my career that, there was a reason I was there. There was a reason I was, played for one team. I played for the Wild for 8 or 9 of those 11 years as a seventh defenseman. And, those guys usually ping pong ball all around the country. Well, how did I get to stay in one spot? Well, I mean, the Lord kept me there. And he said, your biggest impact is going to be, those guys that you have, relationship equity with. And, all those guys respected me as a believer. They knew, there's something different about me, the way I, treated my wife and my kids, and the way I could draw a line on certain situations. And so, there's this a lot of good moments throughout those 11 years. And now, like you're talking about is like, how do I start fanning the flames for my kids and, helping them with their youth sports and their activities and their schooling and, making sure we're, getting to church and, just kind of doing that the right way.
I try to usually pull out advice one time for guys my age. And one thing that really struck me was at the beginning of the conversation, you said your whole life you've had Christ at the top.
Yeah.
And to me, that's super inspiring, super cool. But it seems kind of hard to do as a professional athlete, that would be a very hard situation. And I see myself and I see my friends who compromise on certain things. We're young, we have so much going on, we're trying to strive for this or for that, and it compromises your faith. Or not even necessarily your faith, more of what are you putting first?
Yeah.
You have kids that are in youth sports, stuff like that. What are practical ways, maybe with your own kids or with yourself, that you are able to keep Christ at number one, or to resituate Christ as number one, I guess?
Yeah. I mean, there's a current of this world that is going to
pulls you away.
Yeah. That wants you to think about how much money you make, what type of career you're going to have, how beautiful is your girlfriend, what kind of car you're going to drive, what grades do you have. There's a current, what kind of clothes are you wearing? Well,
and it adds a lot of noise.
Yeah. And we're called to swim against that. We're called to not conform to this world. It's easy to fall into that. It's easy to, even my daughters, I'm telling them doesn't matter. And it's hard for them to fully grasp, but I guess my foundation, I knew okay, this current is pulling us this way. Even hockey and NHL and all my teammates there's a focus on, all that stuff, not to say any of that stuff's bad, and not to say any of that stuff is, you're going to strive to, have a longer career or sign for more money, I'm going to do that. I'm going to work my tail off to, hopefully have a career year where I sign 5 years for $30 million. Great. That's awesome. But we're called to go against that, that narrative of that's the importance. No, our treasures are in heaven. And I knew that. So many guys are oh man, if we ever won the Stanley Cup, that would be the best thing, the best thing ever. I'm well, it would be cool. It'd be fun. But the best thing ever is, knowing where you're going to be when your time comes on this earth, and your name's written in the book of life. That's what's important. And that, just growing, it all goes back to my uproots and my brother and my parents, raising me in a house that's just centered around Jesus, nothing else. Jesus plus nothing. It's not you need to get, confirmed, and you need to, earn this or do this or give this, or it's the relationship with Jesus. That's it. End of story. And I got that at a young age, and going to those Wednesday night services, and it became my own, and he became, my father, and I was able to speak to him, and so just kind of going back to now my kids is making, ensuring that we're spending time in prayer, spending time in our word, spending time, worshiping, like that's what matters. Like when I walk upstairs and my 13-year-old has Air One playing and Brandon Lake singing while she's doing homework, I'm like, that could have been Taylor Swift. That could have been Katy Perry. It could have been Justin Bieber, like boom, like, like that's what I want. Like, I want my kids to like know, I don't like my parents did such a good job at like not putting too much pressure on me of like, okay, hockey, sports. No. We're going to keep that in the right spot. Faith is there. Faith will always be there. Always. And then family and friends and the rest of the stuff can intermix.
That had to have given you a certain level of peace when you're, striving for the next contract. You're only on a 1-year contract and you're like saying, I'm walking on eggshells every day, but where your identity is, your treasure is somewhere else where you can just go out there and play hockey.
Yeah.
You're not going to make money next year and that might come.
Yeah. There's times where that was really hard. Like we were talking about.
It's kind of a conflict of interest.
It was.
That is pretty cool.
It's hard to, when you're in it and thinking, all right, the Lord already knows, but like, man, if I'm, we got 82 game season. If I only play 40 of them, is anyone going to sign me next summer? Shoot, so like going home and like having that frustrations of like not playing or not getting very many minutes. And, it kind of, wore on my wife every now and then. And she was kind of my sounding board through it all. Because I never wanted I never wanted Jared Spurgeon and, like my teammates to be like, look at the negative cloud over there. Look at the bump on the log. That's, thinking he should be playing more and thinking, that's not going to do me any good. That's not going to do the team any good. That's not going to do me any good for next contract, whatever, like there's situations, all along the way that you can go one way or the other. Even when I got cut, you can go one way or the other. Well, tell me what good comes from the negative part. Not too much. Go that positive, mindset of like, okay, like this is the player I'm going to be, and I'm going to do the best I can. And, but again, like not to say there wasn't times where it was hard, and it's hard to tell like fans that because they're like, oh, you're in the NHL, like quit complaining. But, there's times through it all that was like, just some hard moments.
Nate, God gave you a platform and we're just so proud of you. What does life look like today? How are you using the platform that Christ gave you to point others to him? Or what are you doing today?
I joined a business group. So like, when I went to CCA, I graduated with economics and, my dad's a businessman, entrepreneur. I always kind of knew, whether I was going to play 1 year or 11 years, I always kind of knew like my next step was going to be in the business world. And, met a CEO named Brian Slipka. He's the owner of True North and a very faith-driven company that, it's a holdings company, has 30 companies. And I'm, VP of sales for 4 of them. So just kind of, getting into the swing of, I've never done sales. Well, again, what's the mindset? Am I going to be like, pouty about that? Oh, why'd you put me in sales? No. Let's run with it. Let's, have some fun with it and try to, be a light to whoever I encounter now. So like that's kind of, obviously my day job. And then, my kids, like they're all in hockey. So like 4 girls that all play hockey.
They're all in hockey. Can you believe it?
I couldn't believe it. I'm like, every night I laid them all down, put their head would hit the pillow. I'm like, don't play hockey because daddy did. Go, if you want to play basketball, go do that. If you want to play golf or tennis, go do that. And they're all like, no, I like hockey. I want to do hockey. I'm like, oh. So I live in the rinks. I'm in the rink now more than I was when I was playing. I coach.
God has a sense of humor, Nate.
Oh my
I love
gosh.
it.
I coached four hockey teams last year.
No way.
Yeah.
Coached 4 hockey teams.
They all want, because I never was able to when I was playing. I was never able to be on the ice with them. So now like, okay, you're coaching the oldest. Well, second, third, and fourth, we're like, I want you on the ice too. I'm like, all right, I'll do my best. And, so like you come out to Plymouth Ice Center, this winter, you're probably going to see me there. I'm, going to coach 3 teams this year, I'm sure. And, just so the busyness with that. And, my wife's all about, just trying to slow life down. So we come out here all the time in the summers and, just try to enjoy these years with our kids. I think someone like said a stat, like 75% of your time with your kids are, before the age of 16. So it just kind of like almost slapped us both across the faces. Like, we got to enjoy these years with these kids and let them know that we'll always be there for them.
Nate, I'm so proud that you have not been afraid to wear your faith on your sleeve. And that's not easy to do in this world. You've had a tremendous impact on the kingdom. We're extremely proud of you. Harris and I would love to ask you 100 more questions. Yeah. But on the One Pebble podcast, we give the guest the final pebble to throw out, the last opportunity. Today, you've inspired us. You've educated us. You've sharpened me big time. I want to just go out and be a better person because of you, and super proud of your character and your love of Christ and the impact you've had on countless people. But my final question for you, what advice would you have for high school and college kids, so young adults, whether they're in high school and college, and then what advice do you have for parents?
An athlete, high school athletes, college athletes, or just in general?
Athletes.
Athletes.
Or in general, could be too.
Well, I mean, what's crazy is like those age numbers are like on my wife's heart. So like we have a Bible study. Our neighbor here at the lake is Hannah, and she's at St. Thomas, and she thought, everyone longs for community, and a lot of times you don't get that in college and high school. As Christians, we're called to live out our faith and do it in a community. Well, like my wife's heart was like, okay, let's do a college Bible study. So like some St. Thomas, some U of M kids will come over once a month, and usually what draws them is we'll say, well, we'll do a homemade meal for you. So my wife will make like a big taco spread or something. They'll come over, we'll eat, we'll go play some pig or knee hockey in the basement, and then come up and do like a 25-minute like Bible study, encouragement on, faith. So I know like that's kind of the ages of where you start to get attacked, and I guess I just want to encourage them that, I was there, like we've all been in those spots where, you're away from home and there's a lot of temptations to, do things that, might not align with, how you're raised or your faith. And, I just encourage like to just stay strong with, who you are as a Christ follower. So much of our conversation is about your identity and, what's our purpose. And, and again, it just kind of like pulls at our hearts is like, I think, the enemy wants to attack that right now from ages, like 16 to 24, say that, what am I going to be? What am I going to do? Who am I going to marry? A lot of big questions that are hard to answer, but like, I would encourage that, finding a good church or a good chapel or, good Bible study that just, maybe you find a girlfriend there that, you guys can pull each other in the same way. And just encourage each other to go follow Jesus together. That would be my encouragement.
Nate Prosser, you're a really special person. You're an awesome dad. You love your wife. You're doing an amazing job with these 4 daughters. You've sharpened all of us today. We're grateful. Thank you for sharing with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a fun time.
This has been the One Pebble Podcast. One pebble, so many ripples. What will you do to make a difference?